Hey, if you're a closer handling objections like it's 2016, you're losing deals that you should be winning. Today, I'm going to talk to you about one of the parts of our playbook, which is called reverse qualification. This is how we can eliminate the time and the competition objection, creating urgency that you can use in your next call. It's about 5 to 6 minutes long. Watch this video, deploy it in your next call. You will close more deals. But let's get into it. All right, let's talk about part one. So part one of this process is called pre-framing, and I want you to think about that as planting seeds in your buyer's mind. So pre-framing involves strategically asking questions that create doubt or clarify or loosen up potential objections that we need to handle later. So we call this subtle seed planting, where we introduce ideas that subtly counter common objections without directly mentioning them, and proactive objection prevention. So by pre-framing, we ensure that objections like, I need to think about it, never fully materialize. So we're loosening up that belief system or that excuse before it happens so that the closing process is smoother. And I always like to say that if we're handling objections at the end of the call, it's already too late. There's a famous quote from Dale Carnegie's book where he talks about a man who is convinced against his own will is still a man of his own will. And I love that quote for sales because it really reinforces the harder that we convince someone, the less persuasive that we are. So to be the most persuasive, we want to be indirectly persuasive, which means we approach it from the side where we feel like we're making a decision together. So let's talk about the time objection. And essentially, this is about active listening, right? Where we're trying to look for clues that the prospect is saying that they're busy. And some of the things could be like, I'm busy, maybe next quarter. They're signaling that they have like an issue with time. And so we want to dig into that. So, so you say that you're busy, but you want to grow the business or you want to change your sales results. Like, what's this costing you if you don't actually do anything about it? How long has this been going on? What are some of the consequences tied to it? So we want to dive into this time and loosen it before it becomes a problem later by just getting them thinking about, if I am really not focusing on this and I am putting this off, what actually happens as a result? And this is part of this pre-framing thing that we're talking about. It's very subtle. We just add a couple of questions just to create a little bit of focus or awareness around the blind spots that they're not focusing on. And so by prompting them to articulate the cost of an action, you empower them to argue against their own future delay, making the need more time objection irrelevant. Right? That's that whole a man convinced against his will is still a man of his own will. So let's talk about the time competition, pre-framing competition. So you might hear this, I'm shopping around, I need to compare, etc. And so what we want to do is we want to look at what's really going on underneath the surface. Usually this objection is a smokescreen objection for I've been burnt before in the past. Therefore, this is why I'm shopping around. So what we want to do is we want to dig into, so what have you tried that didn't yield the results that you wanted? What specifically led to you reaching out to us as your service provider? So when you hear this objection of like shopping around, it's usually because somebody has been burnt before in the past. So we want to understand what were the bad experiences so that they feel heard, so that when we handle that towards the end of the conversation, it's less unconscious, it's less below the surface. We've kind of pulled it out a little bit. So these questions highlight their previous disappointments, your unique value proposition, and when competitors are mentioned later, your own words serve as ammunition for the solution. So let's talk about part two now, which is reverse qualifying, which is turning objections into reasons. And the mistake with this is it's so incredibly simple that people think it's not powerful. But if you deploy this in your next conversation, you will be amazed. This is the stuff that we've had clients that have come into the playbook, they've picked up one thing, this one thing, they've deployed it and they've closed deals because of it. Because these two things that we're going to do create urgency, overcome the time objection and the competition objection. They get prospects to buy into your sales process and sell themselves. So this is where we guide prospects logically to dismantle their own objections before they arise. It's about pre-mitigating and loosening objections before they take hold. And there's kind of three parts to it. So the first part is they empower the self-correction. Instead of pushing, you help them pull themselves towards the solution. So this is instead of convincing them, where we're getting them to walk towards us, to walk towards our solution, which just feels better because nobody likes to be sold to, right? You've heard that 1,000 times, but they do like to buy. So when we do it this way, it feels collaborative. We also use their logic. So we utilize their previous statements to highlight inconsistencies in their current objections. And this is really powerful because my word is garbage, but your word is gospel, if you've heard that phrase before. Essentially, what that means is it's part of the Cialdini's laws of influence, which is they are more likely to act in accordance with something that they have said because they have said it. And this is the law of consistency and commitment, where if they say they're going to do something or they've said something, it must be true, right? Because I said it. But if I tell you that, that cat was black and brown, there's a little part of you that goes, yeah, but was it more black or was it more brown? But if you say, I saw a cat that was black and brown, then you're more likely to believe what you have said. And this is the logic that goes into this, is if they say it, it is more powerful than if I say it or try to convince them of it. So this is no non-manipulative persuasion. It is literally letting them talk themselves into the sale or helping them overcome their own objections with their own reasoning, with their own logic. So let's talk about reverse qualifying the time objection and how to create urgency. And if you're getting now's not the right time, or I need to think about at the end of the call, it's already become more difficult to overcome. If we can, however, loosen or preempt the objection before the end of the call, it's much easier to deal with. And so this is how it works, right? So the objection is I need to think about it, now's not the right time, etc. So towards the end of the conversation, what we want to be doing is we want to deploy something or a question or variation of this. And these variations of this in the playbook that you just got, but here's my favorite one, which is, I'm curious, we could have this conversation 3 months ago, or we could have this conversation 3 months in the future. Why is now the right time? And just notice the tone that I've said that there, which is like, it's not as like, why now? I'm genuinely curious, like, why is now the right time to do this? Of all the times you could have chosen to do it, I'm curious why now? And what we're doing here is we're getting them to tell us why now's the right time, their urgency, why they reached out, why they booked in. And it's so much more powerful than saying, now's the right time to do this, versus, hey, like, why now? Like, why'd you get the playbook now? Rather than now's a good time to get the playbook. So, I mean, you kind of, laboring the point here, but you get the idea. So by turning this potential timing objection into a question, they will now give you the reason why it's the right time now, rather than us having to convince them that it's the right time. The mistake here is, like I've said before, overcomplicating the simplicity and underestimating how truly powerful it is. The simplicity is in the question and in the frame that you're holding, rather than the tactic itself. It's the principle of tell me why. I'm curious, tell me why now is the right time. So the next one that we have is the competition. So the same logic applies to the competition as it did to the other objection. We want to preempt it with the other stuff that we've like loosened it up. We've been curious. We've tried to see what's underneath. Then we want to preempt this objection so that it doesn't take hold. It's also much easier to overcome the objection if it's never really started in their mind. So this is for the, I want to look at other options, I want to shop around type vibes. So what I usually do is I kind of stack these objections or these reverse qualifications together in a series, and I'll tell you more about the series in a moment. And so it would go something along the lines of this. Okay, cool. So like, thank you for telling me a little bit about why now. I just got another question here, which is, obviously there's a bunch of other sales trainers out there. There's a bunch of other providers. I'm just curious, why me? Why us? And so by doing this, then they're going to tell you, well, I really liked the YouTube video that you did, or we saw your ad, and it just kind of, that thing really resonated with me. And so I really liked it. And so what they're doing here is they're telling you all the reasons why they like you, right? Which is so much better than you trying to sell yourself to them. You get them to tell you why you're a good fit. So this will flip the shop around objection and get your prospects to start thinking about why you're the solution to their problem. So let's talk about some bonus tips for making this work. So to truly master this reverse qualification and maximize its impact, there's a few things we want to keep in mind. Number one, I've said this a few times, but embrace simplicity. The power of these questions lies in their directness, not the fluff and all that kind of stuff. Avoid overcomplicating or over-explaining. Just ask and listen. So essentially, you could actually boil both of those objections down to two things, which is why now, why us? If you really wanted to keep it super simple, just remember those two things right before you close. Why now, why us? So the second thing is control the conversational flow. So these techniques are most effective when prospects have initiated contact, allowing you to guide the discussion from a consultative position. So it's less effective when you're doing outbound, you call someone up cold and you say, so why us? They're like, well, you cold called me. And so these work best when we are in conversational flow, where they've booked in, they're consulting, they've asked for a quote, we're going through, and just before we close, we're building up this momentum. So why us, why now? So talking about when do we use these? So we deploy these questions just before the close to stack momentum. And I like to pair these with the reverse selling, which is also in the playbook. But it goes something a little bit along the lines of this: is we've had the discovery phase and questions. I summarize what's going on, the gap between where they are and where they want to be. We've talked about consequences and goals, all that kind of stuff. And then I've said something along the lines of, okay, cool. So you wanted to double your close rate. You wanted to make $10,000 to $20,000 commission in the next 12 weeks. All right. So what do you need from us in order to make that happen? So what we're doing there is, instead of pitching our product, we're saying, well, what do you need from me in order to make that happen? What's going to help you achieve that goal? What do you need? What were you looking for? And so they start selling you the reasons why. Then the second thing is, after they've said that, we go, okay, cool. Why now? Or, this conversation could have had 3 months ago, 3 months in the future. I'm just curious, why now? And then the next one, why us? Right? So you can do the short version or the long version, whatever feels normal to you. And so what you're going to do here is you're going to build this closing momentum where they're going to tell you what they want, why they want it, why now, and why us. And then the last thing I would say is maintain the right tone. So be mindful of your delivery here. We don't want to come across as the interrogator. So if you listen to the way that I say it, I'm just curious. Why now? So it's not I'm curious. Why now? I'm not trying to yeah, force them into answering their question. I'm genuinely curious. And that's a big part of this, right? Is we want to understand their motives for wanting to buy. And if we understand those motives, they're more likely to buy anyway. So bringing it all together, we have the reverse qualification method. The reverse qualification method is a two-step process that transforms how do you handle objections, making you more effective and persuasive. And we have the pre-framing, which is locating potential objections, listening for potential objections around competition and shopping around and pricing and all that stuff, and then asking questions to uncover what went wrong, getting clarity around those objections, then utilizing those answers as we go to close through reverse qualification questions, which is when the objections arise, we create questions that use their own words to overcome it. So yeah, long short is, instead of debating, we just simply hold up a mirror and say, why? Which I know sounds so incredibly simple, but I promise you that if you use this in your call tomorrow or the next day, you have a completely different prospect on the other side. That you will get less, I need to think about it. You'll get more urgency. You'll get less shop around, and you'll close more deals. So this is a part of our comprehensive Trusted Advisor coaching program. So if you want some help with this, pre-framing scripts, flip frameworks, live practice sessions, and you're looking to boost your conversion rate from 30 to 50% or even make more commission, then just apply. There should be a link in one of the upcoming emails where you could just fill in an application. And if you're a good fit for us, we'll book a call and then we'll talk about the best way for you to move forward. Otherwise, enjoy the playbook so far, and I'll see you in the next video.